What made you straight up nope out of a relationship? Story 1. I genuinely feared for my safety. I went over and we got into an argument, so I slept on the floor essentially. I went to the bathroom to text one of my buddies to come pick me up since I thought she had fallen asleep. I suddenly get a text from her saying, "Where are you?" and my phone made a sound. I froze up and opened the bathroom door, and she was already standing there waiting for me in the darkness. She didn't say a word at all, just stared at me until I walked by. I went back to my spot on the floor and got under the blanket and pretended to be going asleep until she did. And after about 30 minutes, I decided to peek out from under the covers, and she was literally towering over me in total darkness with her eyes wide open the entire time. I got the frick out of there so quickly. Story 2. Married for 6 years. Started out thinking she just struggled with depression and anxiety sometimes, but things kept escalating. I walked away when she started threatening to stab me in my sleep. We had already tried several couples therapists and individual therapists, but she refused to consider medication. I called her to meet up and try to find some closure, but she cut me off, telling me I wasn't allowed to leave her, and as punishment, she was sleeping with 2 other guys. At that point, I just ignored her number and filed for divorce. Hope she's doing well, but glad to not be afraid for my life. You didn't want to get stabbed in your sleep? Seems to me like a very reasonable boundary to set. Good that you left her. Story 3. When my now ex-wife came into the living room where I was sleeping on the couch after a fight, she began lunging at me. She asked me if she reminded me of my stepdad, who used to come into my room at night and stand over me before he dragged me out of bed by my ankles. He would then beat me with his belt for whatever sins I made that day, he said. She was the only person I had ever shared this with. She went out of town for work 2 days later, and when she came home, I was gone and in another state. It was remarkable the amount of abuse I put up with to that point. It dawned on me that if he had returned to my life, I wouldn't let him hurt me, so there was no reason to let her abuse me either. Story 4. I had a very long and toxic relationship with an ex. I had wanted to leave for years, but he would threaten to kill himself, and I would end up staying. I finally got the courage to walk away when I was diagnosed with several benign liver tumors and was told by the doctor that it was very important with this type of tumor to immediately and permanently stop taking hormonal birth control. I researched it on my own and confirmed the single most important thing I could do to avoid further complications was to stop taking hormonal birth control for good. I told my then husband about the appointment, and he said so calmly, "Well, that's going to be a problem." I was like, "What do you mean?" Nope, condoms were unacceptable because we were married, and not having sex until I got to the gyno was also unacceptable. What really made my blood run cold, though, was when he suggested that I should continue to take birth control as normal and just not tell the doctor. "He'll never know," he said. Then he went on to suggest maybe I could go on and off birth control, so I'd be off it before any follow-up appointments with this doctor to ensure that he'd never know. I was totally stunned, and I just looked at him and said, "You understand this could kill me? This isn't about placating a doctor, this is about my life." He just shrugged and said he wasn't using condoms, and I needed to figure it out. I did figure it out. I left him more than a decade ago and have never been happier. Story 5. We went to the mall and stopped by this little kiosk selling cookies. I decided that I would get 1 cookie. The lady working there said if I buy 2, I get 1 free. I decided to buy 2 and get the 3rd one for free. My date went off on this lady, saying she's trying to scam me, etc., etc. He was legit yelling so loud that it was echoing through the mall. It was so embarrassing. If you're rude to people in customer service, you're not for me. Yeah, sounds like leaving him was the only good choice you had, in my opinion. Good that he showed his true colors that time. You could have started an entire family with that guy, only to find out later that he was actually a total jerk when it's already kind of too late. Story 6. My brother took a girl to a high-end sushi place, and his date ordered 3 times the food as he did. He just got a grilled salmon. She ate almost none of it, and at the end she said she ordered all the extras so she could take some home for tomorrow. When the waiter showed up for the bill, she excused herself to go to the bathroom. The waiter asked my brother if he wanted to split the check, and at that point, my brother did the right thing and stuck her with $100 worth of sushi and booze. The girl returned to see a huge check at her seat. Story 7. She told me she was on birth control. Turns out she thought drinking a lot of Mountain Dew would make it so she couldn't get pregnant. I have so many questions. Story 8. We weren't in a relationship, but I had a developing thing with a guy once, until one day when I wasn't around, he and some other friends of ours went to a bar, and he sneakily slipped stronger alcohol into some other girl's drink there. This girl apparently was talking a lot with one of our other friends and not showing much attention to him. So he got jealous and threw this friend on the floor and started to strangle him. He was obviously thrown out of the bar after that, and later tried to play it off as just a joke and just messing around. How do you jokingly try to strangle someone anyway? Anyways, I dropped this guy out of my life right after I found that out. I definitely wouldn't want to be stuck with someone like that. It's really unfortunate to hear about your experience with this guy. It's concerning and alarming that he would sneakily slip stronger alcohol into someone's drink and then become violent and physically abusive towards a friend out of jealousy. Story 9. Not that you're not pretty, but you would be so much more attractive if you looked like my baby sister's name. To which I said, "You mean 15 years younger and a minor, 6 feet, blonde, and a size 2? He said it in front of his friends, and everything went dead silent. His best friend punched his arm and told him he was being a D. I got up and walked out. His sister called later to apologize for him being an a-hole and told me his entire family was pissed at him. Worst part, he genuinely didn't think he did anything wrong." Reply 1. Not the same, but still involving younger sister. My ex, 19, almost 20 at the time, told me that my younger sister was going to be super attractive in a few years. At the time, my sister was 7, so I don't know what his definition of a few years is, but it's not enough. At the time, I had just turned 16, and the comment really helped put into perspective what was really going on. Story 10. I dated this girl who was jealous, and I mean super jealous. I couldn't hang out with my friends without her constantly calling me. Obviously, I couldn't do the same because how could I be jealous? That would have meant I didn't trust her. That's annoying enough to end a relationship, but it was just the tip of the iceberg. After 9 months, I found out from one of my friends, who also happened to be a close friend of hers, that she had been hiding her sexuality from me. She was actually bi. At first, I really didn't get why she did that, because I absolutely have no problem with these things. Mutual friend then told me she was going around effing other chicks. So basically, she was hiding her bisexuality so that she could have sex with any girl she wanted to without me even suspecting anything. Sometimes she even had threesomes with the girls' boyfriends. When I told her I knew everything, she started telling me that she didn't want me to know because those other people didn't really matter for her, and she didn't love them. Needless to say, I noped the frick out of there. It's understandable that dealing with a partner who's extremely jealous can be difficult and frustrating, especially when it comes to maintaining friendships and other important relationships outside of the romantic one. It's important for both partners to trust each other and give each other the space to have their own individual lives as well. Story 11. He was violent when angry, like crazy angry. What did me in is when he sped up on a dark country road and turned off the headlights. We survived, and as soon as we got into town, I got out of the car and relationship. Reply 1. Why did he turn off the headlights? Reply 2. Surprisingly common abuser tactic to scare people, even though it puts them at equal risk of a car crash. Glad you're okay, though. That sounds freaking terrifying. Story 12. Lady stayed the night for first time, then started taking pictures of my house the next morning and posting them on social media. She put my bedroom, living room, and master bath on, and I was like, "What are you doing?" She said, "I want everyone to see your place." I said, let me take you home. Told her I didn't like that she did that. Then she complained on social media how I was so petty for not liking her posting my house. Then called me up to go out again. I was just astonished. She thought I would be like, "Post my house, speak ill of me, and come on back." She was a one-nighter. Story 13. I had a huge crush on her for a while, but never had the opportunity to talk to her given our weird work schedules. Then a friend from work sets us up. I was elated. First date goes really well, and we hit it off. We start spending as much time as we can around each other, talking on the phone every night, all the special things you do when you're starting a new relationship. Then she starts coming over more often, unannounced. She would stay for a couple of nights, then a week, then 2 weeks. I would come home from work, and she would be in my house, sometimes drunk. Thing was, she had almost been fired for an incident involving alcohol before and was lying to them about her sobriety. She would have a few too many, then go off about her family or how I wasn't taking our 2-month relationship serious enough. Final straw dropped on Valentine's Day this year. She gets annihilated to the point of not being able to walk on her own. After I refuse her drunk advances, she flips out. What followed was a couple of hours of her threatening to drive home drunk, sitting outside so the cold weather would freeze her to death, laying in my bed, and wailing my name till hoarse, and alternating between manic laughter and crying. 2 days later, once she was sobered up, I told her to kick rocks. We dated for just around 3 months. Quickest turnaround ever for me in a relationship. It's clear that your experience with your ex-partner was a roller coaster of emotions, and it's understandable why you had to end things after just 3 months. It's concerning that she was coming over to your place unannounced and getting drunk, especially considering that she had almost been fired for an incident involving alcohol before. The fact that she had been lying to her work about sobriety is also a red flag. Story 14. He wanted me to spend time only with him or my family. He checked my phone and wanted me to have only 5 chats: my mom, my dad, my sibling, and him. I could not talk, say hi, or hug my male friends, and eventually I was not allowed to have them. I wasn't allowed to meet my girlfriends either. At some point, he took my phone and unfollowed every male in my Instagram. He used to come to my place and stay there with me to avoid going out. I dreamt about traveling to Japan, but he said no, because at that time I really liked one Japanese actor, and he was afraid I could meet him and fall for him. Toxic as frick. I had balls to break up only after 2 years of relationship. He stalked me for a couple of weeks after. Now I value myself a lot more and would never let someone do something like this. Story 15. Her father recently got into a brawl with a date's teenage kid. I was concerned and asked questions. She then explained how the teen had it coming because they didn't know their place. Feeling confused, I asked her to elaborate again. It turned out that a grown man punched a mentally disabled autistic teen rather than simply walk away. I told her that I refuse to date people who are cool with domestic violence. She was immediately remorseful, but then defended her father's drunken, violent outburst against a child a few moments later. Do not date people who think that an adult ought to beat mentally disabled children. Story 16. Showing up at my door when I hadn't disclosed my address. Edit. For clarification, I'm a guy, and we'd only just started dating. I'm very wary of giving out my address until I know who I'm dealing with. I don't want to end up with a stalker if things go sour. It happened anyway in this case. Story 17. After maybe 2 years of him constantly trying to make me jealous, we temporarily had a 16-hour time difference as I was traveling home to see my grandparents. When I was asleep for maybe 7 hours, because, well, it was nighttime, and I had not responded to his 50 texts, he finally said he was going to spend time with other girls for 7 hours that day, because that's how long I was probably going around spreading legs. I don't know why, but at that moment, it was like a moment of clarity. And I just replied, okay, blocked him, his family, and all his friends, and just moved on.